Even as the Republican field for the White House continues to grow, there are calls for one leader of the pack to drop out. Iowa's largest newspaper, the Des Moines Register, publishing an editorial telling Donald Trump to leave the race over his controversial comments about Senator John McCain's service in Vietnam. The senator has accused Trump of using outrageous statements about illegal immigration to incite some members of the GOP, but Trump standing his ground and firing back.
If you look at what John McCain said, we had 15,000 incredible Americans talking about illegal immigration bill, and he called them crazies. And that was a very insulting thing. They were all very insulted in Phoenix the other day. I also see what's happening because I'm making the rounds all over the country, and I see how badly our veterans are being treated. And he's the guy. I mean, he's supposed to be doing it.
Nina Easton is the senior editor and columnist for Fortune magazine, also a Fox News contributor. And Paul Kuhn is author of the new book, What Makes It Worthy, and former chief political correspondent for Real Clear Politics. It's nice to have you all. So you have the Des Moines Register calling for Trump to get out of the race. He fires back at the paper. David, I'm curious what you think, though, about what the Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson has to say in all of this, saying that he believes that all this back and forth over Trump is just making him stronger. Is it?
That's right. It surely is. The more attention you give him, the more he is seen, the more we talk about him. The Des Moines Register point is a noble point, but Trump has exhibited, if anything, that he doesn't care about the traditional media. He is as strong as he was last week. That said, it's not that Trump will remain at these levels in the polls, but I don't think he's disappearing either.
When you say not remain at these levels, what do you think? What are you predicting?
Trump won't continue to lead the field above the 20% mark. That's a staggering result considering how many people are in this race. But he will remain in the field, and he is certainly a GOP nightmare the longer he stays on the presidential stage.
Do you share David's opinion, Nina, that Trump is a GOP nightmare?
Well, I think what he is, Jenna, he's a name caller and a personal attack artist. That's what he's really good at. So we've seen him use that against Mexican immigrants. We've seen him use it against John McCain's war record. And we've even seen him use it against somebody like Rick Perry, saying who we kind of missed that one, who he said Rick Perry should have to pass an IQ test before joining the debate team. That trait doesn't wear well in American politics historically. And so I think what you're going to see, and it particularly doesn't wear well when you're sharpening your barrel against fellow Republicans. I mean, this is an election for the leader of the free world. This is not an insult-laden reality show. So while he's got this bump in the polls right now, and by the way, these polls I don't think take into account the kind of how this will play out, the John McCain piece will play out. The polls are pretty early, and I think as this plays out, and as other candidates take Trump on, we see Rick Perry taking him on today. As other candidates continue to take him on, I think we're going to see those poll numbers start to slide.
Well, he continues to fire back. He even did so in South Carolina today against Perry. I'm sure our viewers will see that sound as we get it turned because it certainly is driving some of the news cycle, David. In a separate article in the Des Moines Register by Kathy Abranovich, she has a different take on Trump. This is not the editorial that's calling for him to resign. But this is her opinion about what Trump is doing to the field. Here's what she says. Trump has indicated this cycle that he doesn't intend to run as an independent or third-party candidate if he doesn't win the GOP nomination. He knows that would help elect a Democrat in November. But if Republicans toss him over a cliff, that may be his way to cushion the landing. Republicans can't afford to associate themselves with Trump, but they also can't risk driving him away. What do you think about that?
That's the most important point as it relates to the political calculus in Donald Trump. If Donald Trump were to run as a third-party candidate, he would basically assure a Republican loss in the 2016 election because he would consolidate Hispanic support for Democrats and win white working-class voters from Republicans. Let's remember that Ralph Nader made George W. Bush president with only 3% of the vote. Donald Trump can get those numbers. That's why he is a Republican nightmare.
And Nina, that's why Kathy is saying that he has the party over the barrel. That is her description of him. Is that the case?
Yeah, the other historical example, of course, is Ross Perot. People forget that Bill Clinton only got 42% of the vote in 1992, and that it killed George H.W. Bush to have Ross Perot in the race. So when you have somebody like that who takes peels off enough of the Republican electorate absolutely it's dangerous. And yes, in some ways he does have the Republican Party over a barrel, but they also know that you can't let Donald Trump define the party. And I do think Donald Trump has gone into dangerous waters in attacking John McCain.
And we'll see what happens, as you point out, Nina, when we actually get some new polling. Does it affect him? We'll see. But just anecdotally, I was talking to some guys in our neighborhood. They know I work on the air, and so every once in a while we have these conversations. They were asking me about Trump, and they were actually expressing a lot of genuine interest in him and as a candidate. And I don't want to discount that either. This is something that a lot of voters out there, this is someone that is resonating. And David, I wonder what it is actually telling us about, one, the GOP field, but also the Republican Party overall, about voters and what they want.
And America overall. Let's enlarge this discussion. I think that the political class, that includes many of my colleagues in the media, we know the data on how angry Americans are at Washington, but I don't think the political class understands it in their gut. And Americans are infuriated at the governing class, at those who have run our nation, at the sense of crony capitalism, etc. And Donald Trump captures that fury. So sure, he may say something that's impolitic, he may offend some of our core values with what he said about John McCain, but they are willing to forgive some of Trump's comments because they at least feel that he's willing to take it to the establishment.
And Nina, is there anyone else that can channel that the same way that Trump does?
Well, certainly, I mean, you see, it's very important to note that Ted Cruz is not attacking Donald Trump, and that's because he sees an opening for himself. If Donald Trump does self-implode, he wants those supporters for himself. It's actually hurt Ted Cruz in the polls. So absolutely, there's others in the race that could fill that void. By the way, when the debate comes, the first debate comes up next month, a few weeks, and you see him on that panel with other candidates, that'll start to sort things out as well.
We'll see. It could sort it out in different directions. I mean, you never know what actually is going to take place. Great to have you all. Nina, thank you very much. David,
Thanks,
congratulations. I know your book's out today. We appreciate you coming on the program. Thanks
for having me.